Okay, hi Duncan, how you going?
G'day, Pato. Really good. How are you going?
Yeah, awesome. Um, Great to meet you at MVP just over a week ago.
And you likewise. It's like meeting a hero.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like we'd been messaging each other a little bit before the race, so I knew you, but it was the first time I think we'd ever met him. Well, it was the first time we'd ever met in person, and you did really well. So 26 yards, top five. But I understand you haven't been running for all that long. So when did you start and how did you get into it?
So I started running almost 12 months to the day out from MVP. So I got into it because I was crewing a friend at last year's event. A week before, we were up in Brisbane out at a pub, and he told me he was going to run 100K the next weekend. I thought he was joking.
Yeah.
He was dead serious. So I booked a flight that night down to Melbourne, saying that if he's serious, I'm serious, and I'll make sure we can get him to 100K. We got him there, and when he hit the 15-yard mark, the 100K mark, he just wanted to quit. And I thought, oh, you've come so far, why quit now? So I sort of tried to egg him on to keep going. I said, if you ever want to run 110 kilometers, you're going to have to run 100 kilometers again. Like, just go one more, go two more. But he wouldn't. So I then tried a bit of reverse psychology and told him that if he wanted to stop now, I'd come back and beat him next year, and he could quit now, make it easy for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into running. Was an attempt at reverse psychology gone wrong.
Did you play any sports like when you were younger or anything like that?
I played footy and a bit of soccer at high school. I mean, I did little athletics when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, 10, 11, just running around the local grass oval. Never took it seriously, never trained, just ran. But between high school and now, it's 15 years of very little physical exercise.
Yeah. I
So,
did look at your Strava. I noticed that you have played a fair bit of golf.
yeah, love golf. I'm pretty average golfer.
Right.
I'm actually might be the most average golfer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So, but I do enjoy it. It's a nice way to get out, and it's 4, 5 hours where you think about nothing but golf.
Yeah.
So it really clears the head. But I do like golf.
Yeah.
And back to the running thing. I mean, I guess it's one of those things I've always tried to get into. I feel like every January it's like a New Year's resolution. This year will be the year, and it just never happened. You get 3 weeks in, you do a couple of 3 or 4K runs, and you realise that it's a lot harder than you imagined, or that it was when you were 15 years old. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I noticed on Strava is like every year you've done like 3 or 4 runs and that's pretty much it. And then like
yeah,
last year it just exploded. So up until MVP 24, you knew absolutely nothing about backyard ultras or even ultra running, I guess.
no, my stepmom who was at MVP and ran 14 yards,
Yeah.
but rounded up on the 15th to get 100 Ks, but she wasn't finishing the yard.
Right. Yeah.
She's been running ultras for maybe the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what inspired my friend to do MVP last year. Was she'd told him about this event that would be an easy way to run 100 kilometers because it's like been a bucket list thing of his.
Yeah.
So I guess I had like a outsider's view. I thought my stepmom was mad. Why does she want to go out and run all these? And she's always told me, "Oh, come running, come running."
Yeah.
But no, other than that, I had no perspective on the sport, or I didn't know that there were people who went out and ran for days, and to be honest, probably didn't understand it
Yeah.
when I first started running anyway.
And do you remember like what you thought of MVP when you were there crewing? Like, I got the impression that Well, I don't know if you fell in love with the format, but you thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, I couldn't believe where I was and what was happening around me. I mean, I didn't sleep once when I was crewing. I stood there and I cheered my mate Toby running every time he ran past that sort of athletes area. I made sure I didn't miss one opportunity to root him on, and then just watching all these people just keep going around and around and around in circles, and the vibe and the atmosphere, and it was. I think before I'd made the deal with him to beat him, I think part of me already thought like, oh well, this is a pretty cool thing to be doing, a pretty cool community, and
Mm. How did you get into the running routine? Like when you got back home, like how did you know what to do, and like how did you know how to do it?
well, I started with a lap around the oval. I thought I'd go run 5Ks around the
Yeah,
oval. I thought I'll run on grass because that must be better for my joints. I was probably 110 kilos.
yeah,
And it turns out I could run 2 laps of the oval before I had to walk. And so I did that, and it was hard. And then I did it the next day, and it was just as hard. And then I just thought, no, look, you just got to keep doing it. And then I dialed it right back. I mean, I started doing some maybe like 2 kilometer runs, some short 15, 20 minute runs. And I just made it really, really manageable and enjoyable. I didn't want it to be something that I didn't enjoy. And I think that was my problem in the past when I tried is I wanted to run 8Ks. I wanted to run 10Ks. Whereas I'd created this goal so far in the future that it didn't matter what I did in those early days because I knew at some point it was going to get easier. Runs were going to get longer, and that's how the structure then was sort of born. And I'd listened to obviously your podcast.
yeah,
I'd started, force feeding myself Backyard Ultra podcast. And I remember maybe it was Joel saying his success at MVP he put down to some 100-kilometer weeks. So I'd sort of just in the back of my mind said, all right, 100-kilometer weeks. That's got to be the goal at some point. And if we can get a few of those in a row before January next year, then, I'd be on target.
Yeah, awesome. And so did you follow any, there's those couch to 5K programs and stuff like that. Did you follow anything like that, or was it just like you were just doing it on your own?
At the start, I sort of went off the Garmin coach,
Right.
but it wanted too many rest days. I wanted to run further and further. So I sort of got away from that. And then classic, you go out and you try to run 25 kilometers one day and you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So, never a bad injury. And then, and then I couldn't run for 2 weeks. And I thought, all right, that's not the way to go about things. So then I didn't follow a plan as such, but I just worked off this sort of 10% rule.
Yeah.
Increase runs by 10%, try not to increase volume and intensity at the same time.
Mm.
And then I remember one day I was just at the end of maybe a 10K run, and I got to the driveway. My driveway's 300 meters long, and I thought I might just go up and down the driveway a few times because I feel pretty good. And I ended up running, I think, 11Ks up and down the driveway.
Right.
And that's when I sort of felt that I guess maybe I'd gotten to this new level where the body was starting to handle a bit more volume and a bit more structure, and I sort of gave myself the tick to sort of level up. But there was no programs, just consistency, just getting out there 5 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you did mention that you were 110 kilograms. Has all this running helped, or has it made you lose weight?
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm down. I'm down to about 90 kilos.
Wow, gee, 20.
So the Ks are they just fall off you when
Yeah.
you're running a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I should never have been that heavy to start with. I I eat pretty well in general, but obviously the lack of exercise just was all feeding into some bad, some weight trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So in November, you ran your first ultra, which was the 50K the Gold Coast 50K, I believe, and you did it pretty good, like 4 hours 26 minutes. And I looked on Strava, you ran it so consistently, like every K split was like within 10, 15 seconds of each other by the look of things. So, I mean, that must have given you a whole heap of confidence, that run.
It definitely did. And look, that was just a long training run for MVP.
Yeah.
So about 3 months prior to that, I had reached out to Sam Harvey, who I found through your podcast was a coach. So I hit him up on Instagram. I thought, I wonder if this bloke's got any interest in coaching a complete rookie, with no idea. But because I'd started to dedicate, 5 days, 6 hours a week to running, I thought, look, reach out to him. Let's get some structure. And the first thing he told me to do was pencil something in the calendar for November that was between 50 and like 70 kilometers as a big, long training run at a hard effort. So when I turned up, I didn't know what to expect. I'd run a half marathon locally, a little local fun run here, and didn't know what to expect. And you're right, it gave me a lot of confidence. I picked a pace. I stuck to it. I would have loved to run a negative split, but the heat that day, as the sun started to come up, it just meant that I prioritised hydrating and cooling off. At every aid station I'd stop, walk, make sure I got enough water and enough nutrition, because I was watching people just drop like flies around me with cramps and, rolling around in the heat on the side of the path. And I thought, all right, don't let that be you. Don't worry about losing 10 or 15 seconds at every drink station. Just stop, hydrate, maybe have a cramp fix. But yeah, when I finished that, it definitely did give me a bit of confidence, not necessarily in my ability, but in the process, knowing that I'd done the work to get myself there. I'd understood enough about my running to pick a pace, and at the finish line, knowing that I left everything out there, I didn't feel like I had any more time in me. I think that was, I don't want to say a perfectly executed race, but as close to as you could get for someone doing it for the first time.
Yeah, awesome. So I know like you were excited to do MVP like just a couple of weeks ago that we had. And I mean, you live in New South Wales, just close to the Queensland border. So like coming to MVP, like it's a bit of a trip. So were you tempted to like sign up for a backyard ultra closer to where you live before MVP?
Look, it had crossed my mind. I definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
But I wanted my debut, so to speak, to be down there. It was all born out of the idea of beating my friend. So beating my mate on the like-to-like course, was the plan. And I guess I didn't want to go spoil the joy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go and beat him somewhere else. And then maybe had I done that, I might not have gone down to MVP. Because of the travel and because of the distance. So, turning up there, that was always going to be my first crack at a backyard ultra. And it was probably around that Gold Coast run where the goalposts sort of shifted, and I'd moved past this idea of I still wanted to beat my friend, but I didn't want 100 to be a number that was in my head. I'd really become fascinated with the idea of how far can someone run, and especially how far can someone run for dedicating 1 year to running, as a beginner.
Yeah.
So MVP was the goalpost from that first run around the oval 12 months ago.
Yeah. So I know you put a lot of thought and planning into the race. What were the main pillars of your plan at MVP?
Well, everything I knew I'd learnt from the podcast, and reaching out to, obviously being coached by Sam, there's a wealth of knowledge there. So firstly, trusting his process, trusting what he'd told me to expect, would be the first thing, is knowing that I had the ability and I'd done the work to push myself as far as I could go, and that there was no ceiling created by any doubt or any uncertainty. And then I hit up James Blanton. He lives not too far from me, and I went for a run with him and, picked his brain for 2 hours on what I could maybe expect. So that was super handy. But other than trusting the process, the pillars were one lap at a time.
Yeah.
When you break it down to 6.7 kilometers in an hour, it's easy. Yeah. And I don't want to undersell how hard it is, but it's easy. So really just focusing on that one lap at a time, and then having a good plan in place in terms of nutrition, practicing those things. So I think a lot of variables I had controlled. But that being said, there's only so much you can plan for when you've never run that far, and things start to unravel as you get 20 hours into a backyard ultra and you've never run, that far before. And but I did feel pretty organised, and the plan I'd put in place definitely covered most things that could have arisen.
Yeah, cool. Now, how did you feel like, because this was like a hot backyard ultra, how did you feel when you looked at the forecast and saw that it was going to be like in the 30s on the Saturday and even hotter on the Sunday?
I got excited. I didn't look. I was there to test myself, but I think I'm a competitive person by nature, and although I knew the caliber of people arriving, and I didn't want to ever think that I wasn't a chance. Yeah. As much as I was probably never a chance, I didn't want to believe that, because that just then plays into, I guess, that quitting mindset. So when I saw the temperatures, I thought, oh, well, I run after work most days up here in northern New South Wales. I'm getting out at 27, 28, 30 degrees almost daily, high humidity in the sun. So I thought, this probably plays into my favour in terms of where I will sit amongst the other runners.
Yeah.
But I did also know that it wasn't going to be conducive to going and running as far as I could. And I think it was probably the dehydration that brought me undone.
Yeah.
But I was pretty excited when I saw the forecast. I didn't look at that and think, oh, it's going to be a scorcher. I mean, Sunday was, 38, 39, that's hot.
Yeah.
But when I saw 34, I thought, oh, just another day in the Northern Rivers.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Now, MVP start, it's an unusual start. So it started at 7 p.m. on the Friday night. How did you enjoy that first night running in your first backyard ultra?
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. I ran with my wife. She was there. She did 6 hours. a good friend of hers was there, did 4 hours, and like I said earlier, my stepmom was there, and we got to run the night together. So um, I was grateful to just go straight through a night. I think.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to think about what doing your first night at 12 or 15 hours in must be like. That must be a lot harder than going straight into it. I mean, I don't know, but I could only think that it would be harder, but it made the second night hard. But no, running through my first night was awesome. It was a great experience. And I mean, that crowd of people and just the vibe around, and, seeing all people of different ages and like everyone just trotting around, and everyone was so friendly and so nice. And you start chatting with so many different people. And so, no, it was exciting to start at night. I think it gave it a real special vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unreal. Now, did you have any issues at all in the first 12 hours or so? Or was it pretty straightforward?
I'd love to say no, but my stomach turned on me,
really?
Maybe 4 hours in.
Yeah.
And I think I went to the bathroom every loop for 7 or 8 hours.
Oh, really?
I battled that pretty hard, but I just put it down to that's normal. I'd never done it before. I thought, maybe this is just what happens. So I still don't know otherwise. And I just made sure to allow a bit of time in the loop to do that. But other than the stomach issues, it was all pretty straightforward. I just kept running.
Yeah. And
running.
With the stomach issues, like, did you do anything was there anything you were eating or anything like that to try and fix it? Or was it just time, and time fixed it on its own?
I think maybe dehydration fixed it in the end, which probably isn't ideal.
Yeah.
At all. But no, just time. Look, I didn't, again, the mind, energy goes where the mind flows, or energy flows where the mind goes, or someone told me something like that. And I didn't want this issue to build up in my mind. So once it became an issue, I sort of just almost struck it away and thought, no, this is just part of it. Like, don't let this become an issue. Don't think of it as a problem. And unless it starts to, you run past a bathroom every 15 minutes. So it wasn't something that I was ever concerned about.
Yeah.
Being a embarrassing situation.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't do anything about it. I don't know if I should have. I don't know what I could have done.
Yeah.
So just kept going.
Yeah. So as well as the heat, the other thing with MVP is the hills. So the elevation's about 120 meters per yard. I mean, how did you find the hills? Like, do you train much elevation where you are?
Look, it's pretty hilly around. There's a lookout opposite my house, which from home to the top and back, I think I get about 100 could be about 120 meters of elevation.
Yeah.
And that's the only place I can run from home. So I often do a few lookout and backs. But I didn't train it specifically. I mean, I don't avoid hills in my training, but I don't seek them out.
Yeah.
That being said, I definitely, the hills were what brought me undone.
Right.
That combined with dehydration. Yeah. So on the 27th loop, where I didn't finish, I got to a hill and couldn't get up. Couldn't get up the hill.
Yeah.
It was a literal 2 steps forward, 4 steps back scenario. I was so dehydrated, and I was trying to catch up on that, which I don't think you can. My muscles, my quads were just absolutely shot. And, I was talking to myself out loud. I had to go, had an up the hill, stumbled back down. I thought, all right, let's try running up the hill, get a little run up, and that didn't work. And so I stood there and I thought, maybe like maybe we could crawl up the hill. And that's when that's the first time in the whole race I thought to myself, oh, maybe we're done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we're going to be able to crawl up the next hill. And we're talking about crawling up this one. And I'm literally talking to myself, trying to build a plan. And it was the first time I thought, no, look, this might be as far as you can run, Duncan.
Yeah.
So the hills were a challenge, and it's definitely something I will include more in my training.
Yeah.
If I'm to head back down to MVP, or just in general, I think there's no harm in running hills.
Yeah. Now you've mentioned you were dehydrated a couple of times. Did you track how much you were drinking? Like, do you know, like, were you drinking like a litre per hour or anything like that? Or like, do you know where you went wrong with the dehydration?
Yeah, look, I tracked everything. Again, listening to the podcast, hearing the guys who track things and then can look back, and I thought, look, I want to run another one of these. This is, if anything, this is your first crack, and this is going to be the benchmark and the time to learn. And so I had the guys crewing me right down everything. I was drinking between 500 and maybe a litre throughout the night, probably hitting about 750 mils average per lap.
Yeah.
And that was fine. I was going to the toilet each lap, doing a wee. And that was sort of didn't want to wee too much, didn't want to not wee at all. But then once that sun came out, I was starting to drink a litre and a half an hour. I was keeping my sodium up, but I wasn't going to the toilet, and I just couldn't get any more water into me. And I think that's something I'll need to practice if I'm going to run these hot races, is how do you possibly maybe get a litre of water into you while you're in the chair?
Yeah.
Because I was, a litre and a half an hour, and that didn't seem to be enough. And I'd love to know, how much some of those other guys were drinking. I mean, everyone's sweat rates are different, but I was taking on about a litre and a half, and that wasn't enough.
Yeah. Did you know, like, could you feel like you were still thirsty and you wanted to drink more, or you just physically were just drinking as much as you could and it just wasn't enough?
I don't know if I would say I was definitely thirsty.
Yeah.
I was stopping and refilling my handheld at the aid station. They were topping that up for me at least once throughout the loop. So I was taking on a litre during the loop, and then I was just getting as much into me as I could. Yeah, in the chair. Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I probably would have, if I went back and did that exact race again in those exact same conditions, I would try to, I guess, scull or get a litre of water probably down in the chair, and that would be the change. But that's a lot of water to be sitting around in your stomach in the corral to then have to put another litre in when you're running around. So
yeah. So I mean, you would have heard the thing that people say, the backyard ultras, they're easy till they're not. At what stage of the race did you notice it wasn't easy anymore?
When I got stuck up the hill.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'd heard they're easy till it's not, and I thought everyone had spoken about the mind gives up before the body, and don't quit in the chair, all these mantras and all these philosophies. But for me, there wasn't a loop I didn't want to start.
Yeah.
There wasn't a time I'd even considered that an option. Yeah. I'd get in the chair, I had however long, and then we go into the corral. Like, it never crossed my mind to quit. Yeah. And that's why I think when I got stuck on that hill and it became physically hard, that was when I sort of thought to myself for the first time, like this could be it. And I wanted to keep going. You know, like I said, I thought about crawling up the hill. I definitely slowed that lap. I changed shoes
Right.
on that lap. I had some rocks in my shoes, and I thought, oh, maybe change shoes.
Yeah.
Horrible decision. Horrible decision. They felt just shocking compared to the shoes I've been running in all day.
Right. Yeah.
And that definitely made it harder. I mean, I think physically I was just on that 27th lap, everything came crashing down. The dehydration meant that cognitively I wasn't probably making good decisions.
Yeah.
I'd noticed a few laps prior I was running in spots I would normally walk and would sometimes just stop running and start walking and without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I was getting a little bit confused.
Yeah.
So then when on that hill was the first time I really thought, oh, this is hard. And that was the end of me.
So how did it feel like when you were breaking these milestones? Like, how did it feel when you beat your mates 15 yards? And how did it feel when you broke 24 hours?
It felt good. I mean, I think I knew I was going to run 100 Ks. I knew I was going to run 15 hours. Then when I got to 24 and I looked around and there was only a handful of people left, I thought, wow, you know, where did everyone go?
Yeah.
And it felt good, you know. Like the vibes on that 24th yard were high. The guys were cheering. Everyone was stoked for each other, you know, just like running past everyone, you know, and just the smiles on people's faces. I think, you know, I mean, that was my experience anyway. People were just so happy to still be there. And so that was definitely a good milestone. But I didn't want to think too far ahead at any point.
Yeah.
I really was just one loop at a time. So the milestones weren't as important for me because the only milestone I really cared about was how far can I run? How far can I go? And that was the one that I was going to be, you know, most happy with. That was the loop that was going to be, you know, the one to celebrate.
Yeah.
Which, you know, was my demise, but that was the place that I'd dedicated 12 months to getting to.
Yeah.
So as much as those little milestones feel good, I don't think I didn't think about them too much prior to getting there.
Yeah, sure. Now, you were running with some seriously good runners when you were hit that. I mean, the whole race. I mean, there were good runners the whole race, but especially towards the end, you were running with some really good ones. What did you learn from running with these runners and watching them in action?
There's so much. I mean, the first time I ran off the front with some of those lead guys who were moving a bit quicker, I realised why they were doing it, or well, why I thought they were doing it anyway. I'd made up my own reasons.
Yeah.
But I realised pretty quickly if you gain a bit of time in that first K and a half, you know, you make up 2 minutes there, moving a bit quicker. Firstly, the body warmed up really well by putting a little bit of pace in that first K and a half, and you just buy yourself so much time in the back end. So that was the probably first time I ran with some of those, you know, guys. And then just the advice that you could put into your plan immediately. Like the Crow one lap said to me, I think, like, have you slept? I said, oh, no, you know. He goes, well, just go back and shut your eyes.
Yeah.
You know, you'll even if you don't sleep, you'll be grateful. So I took off. I think that lap might have run a 44-minute loop and thought, oh, I'll do that. And I slept. I slept for like 13 minutes.
Right.
And in hindsight, I should have done it more. It's probably my superpower is I can sleep in a second. I fall asleep.
Yeah, cool.
So that was one thing that I learned that I just applied straight away. And then running with guys like Tim, just them being so open to share advice. And I mean, Tim gave me a cramp shot at one point, which I was super grateful for. Something I didn't have. But him at one point he said, we problem solve, we problem solve, we problem solve, and we try to fix every little thing as it arises to make it as easy as possible. And then at some point you realise that it's just hard, and that there's not much you can do to make it any better. And at that point, all I'd changed was a t-shirt. And I thought, all right, well, maybe just don't overthink these little things too much. And like I said before, like, don't let things become annoying and become a problem. And just sort of embrace the different challenges that come your way, as opposed to seeing everything as something that needs to be fixed. But running next to those guys, and along with Cheryl, who had the GC50 top on, so we had a good chat about that. I was telling her how much I hated it,
Right.
out and back on a public path in the sun, and she's like, "Oh, I loved it." And I thought, "Oh," but running next to those guys, it was just so inspiring to see them just head down, getting it done. No whinging, no complaining. So I was super grateful to be there at the end with those few.
Yeah. So a lot of runners will find eating a struggle during a backyard ultra, especially when it's hot. So how did you go with like the nutrition side of things?
Oh, that's something I want to give myself credit for nailing.
Right.
I took on between 90 and 130 grams of carbs an hour.
Yeah.
Every hour. I wasn't focused on calories or food or what I was having. It was just a carb number, carbs and sodium. That was all I was concerned about. And I did that every hour. Eating solid food became tough, and as soon as it did, I thought, oh, well, I'll just keep knocking back these gels, which were going down fine. I mean, I could probably eat the same food every day for the rest of my life. Yeah. So eating the same thing over and over for however many hours, like, it's a means to an end. And I knew that I just couldn't afford not to be getting the carbs into me.
Yeah.
I also had my wife just giving me things while I was in the chair. Here, eat a snake, and I just eat it. I didn't want her to, tell me off for not eating the snake. So I just eat the snake, And if I didn't want something, she'd say, "Oh, well, just carry it on the loop." And then obviously it's in your hand. You're like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna eat it." So, but look, should have eaten more solid food to start early on, knowing that I was going to end up just having gels and Morton drink mix.
Yeah.
Morton gels, Morton drink mix. It was very single flavored. But I didn't mind. The gels were going down a treat. So.
Oh, so you said you stopped eating solid food pretty early. Like, do you remember around what loop you stopped having the solid food?
Oh.
Was it at night, or was it?
Yeah, it would have been at night. It would have been at night, and it would have been when I was having those gut issues. And again, the food was a means to an end. And I thought, look, I can stomach the gels. It's no problem. The fact I was going to the toilet often wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
So I decided I'll just have the gels. I mean, it becomes a pretty expensive way to do it. Yeah, I'd hate to see how much dollar value of gels and Morton drink mix I consumed in that 26 hours.
So I remember after I dropped, I was, it must have been after about loop 25 or 26, you were walking back to your marquee with your wife, and I overheard you telling her that you were running and trying not to fall asleep. Like, you were, do you remember saying that?
Yeah. I started to close my eyes while I was running.
Yeah.
Um, it again, I think it was the dehydration. I
Right.
think cognitively, I wasn't all there. I was pretty confused again. So I just found myself closing my eyes.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if I wanted to sleep. I mean, obviously, I wanted to sleep maybe, but I just, yeah, everything was happening at once. I wasn't making great decisions.
Yeah.
And I just knew I had to keep running to the tree or the corner or walk to the top of the hill or
Yeah.
so I didn't, and I think I had a sleep. I think she put me down after that loop and said, "Well, just close your eyes." And so I should have rested more between loops. I was coming in with plenty of time, and I wasn't giving my mind any time to rest. And I
Right.
think that's what it was just my brain wanted a moment to switch off, and closing my eyes was the only way I think it could sort of get that.
So, so what were you doing between loops when you weren't switching off? Like, were you just like chatting away with your crew, or what were you doing?
I don't think I was chatting,
Right.
but I definitely wasn't eyes closed, focusing on just a bit of quiet time in the mind. I
Yeah.
think I, the fact I'd spent 12 months running towards this race, I just wanted everything to go right. So I was hyper focused on, what do I need next lap? Have I had this? Is my, asking questions I didn't need to answer. Is my drink ready? Or, you know, and then there was a bit of a party going on in my gazebo. There were people coming and sort of going the whole time. So friends I haven't seen for, maybe a year popping in but I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't resting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I looked at the splits and I noticed that 26, I mean, you did 26 yards and 26 was your slowest, but it was still 52 minutes. So, I mean, I did heaps of loops slower than that. Um, and you did start 27. Like, when you started 27, did you have any idea that it was going to be your last one before you got to that hill?
No, no idea. I really like Ross McLean's philosophy of start every loop and give every loop your best crack.
Yeah.
And that was like not finishing the loop wasn't an option, which is why I was coming up with ideas to finish the loop.
Yeah.
When I started running that 27th loop and I'd just done the shoe change, I think it was I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be a tough loop. 26 wasn't tough. I felt comfortable. But it just the quads were so slammed. I'd been getting lifted out of my chair by my crew for 4 hours. I couldn't lift myself up.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a case of the body had enough and wasn't going to let me go any further. And I look back now and you think like, oh, geez, I could you have got, up the hill and then like the flat was manageable. Definitely could have managed the flat. And then that next hill, and then I think like, mate, you were talking about crawling. Like
Yeah.
you weren't in a good place. You got to recognize that, yeah, you're probably, I probably found my limit.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I was going to ask how, like, have you been reliving and replaying those moments from that last loop in your mind of like trying to figure out if you could have done another one?
I mean, the big one that plays on my mind is the shoe change. Like, had I not changed the shoes, would it have made that first K and a half easier? And would, and yeah, I'm replaying it over, but no matter which way you shape it, I mean, I don't think I get up that hill.
Yeah.
Like my legs just were done, and I don't. yeah, I don't want to make excuses for myself. So I think it was just being physically unable to complete the loop. And look, even while I was stuck on the hill, I'd sort of thought to myself, "No, just even if you get through and you can just, you might not make it back in time, but enjoy the loop, enjoy your achievement and everything you've done. Like this is the milestone. This is the place you've worked so hard to be." Um, but I couldn't get up the hill. So, and then actually, when I turned around and started going backwards, I realised I don't really know where to go, and that there was a hill the other way.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh gosh, I might be stuck here." So I started actually yelling for help,
Right.
extremely politely. I remember saying, "Excuse me, excuse me," and then I remember that you weren't allowed to yell at night time, so I don't think I was yelling very loud.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of snakes around.
Did you see any?
I don't think they were real snakes, but
Oh,
I saw
okay.
heaps of them.
Right.
Yeah, I was battling snakes for the last 2 hours,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
knew they weren't. I knew they weren't there.
Yeah.
But those little joiners where the bitumen cracks and they put that black glue.
Yeah.
They were all snakes. And then at one point, someone ran past me and I said, "How you going?" And they said, "I'd be doing better if there weren't all these snakes."
Right.
And I thought, "Oh, maybe there are snakes."
Yeah.
And then they said, "No, no, there's no snakes." But yeah, so I turned around, and then I realised I had to get back up the hill to get back to the thing. And I found a seat. I sat down
Yeah.
for a few minutes because I just thought, "Oh, I'll just have a break."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I could see a set of stairs. And I thought, I think I can manage stairs because there was a handrail. And I think I can pull myself up the stairs. So I slowly migrated back to the start. And yeah, and I wish I was a little bit more aware of that was the end, because I would have liked to soak it in probably a little bit more. But again, I was lost. I
Yeah.
didn't really know where to go, and I thought stairs, that follow the stairs.
Yeah. And just out of interest, what shoes were you wearing?
I ran 26 laps in the Asics Glide Ride Max.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then what did you switch to on the 27th?
Pair of Nova Blast, Asics Nova Blast.
Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, I guess running for such a long time in one shoe, I mean, even the smallest difference in the heel offset could make it would feel massively different.
Yeah, it felt like having wooden thongs
Right.
off.
Yeah.
It felt horrible.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw them out. I don't know if I'll ever wear them again, to be honest.
Yeah. 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 And so what was harder? I mean, what was harder about the format than you expected? Was there something about it that was hard that you didn't expect?
Good question. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if anything surprised me. I felt like I was pretty prepared.
Yeah.
Um, I thought, no, nothing. Again, I don't want to downplay it at all, but it might have been easier than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
And I think that's purely because I thought I was going to get into these mental struggles where I was going to want to quit and I was going to have to fight my mind for 6 hours on this idea of quitting and pulling the pin. Like I do sometimes on a 60-minute easy run on a Tuesday. Like,
Yeah.
you can fight those demons on the easy days, where all you want to do is maybe shorten the run or turn around here. We'll just make it 45 minutes
Yeah.
and I didn't get that. I think maybe that's because I blocked the options. The options were closed for that. So no, the challenge became physical, and I put that down to strength. I've been running for 12 months. I don't have, what don't I have that those others that were there at the end have? And that's probably 1,000 kilometers under the bonnet.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have the strength in my legs to keep going up those hills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was everything I'd expected. And yeah, there was no real surprises.
Mm. Who's been the biggest influence on your running, or is there one runner in particular who inspires you?
Oh, I don't think so. Like, I wouldn't say a specific runner. I'm a big fan of the sport ever since I started listening to the podcast, and I was there last year. Like, big fan of the sport. So just watching what everyone's been achieving over the last 12 months and watching these guys push themselves to new limits, and you know, everyone breaking their own PBs, and then the success of the Australian team at the satellite championships. And I think I just drew on everyone's experience and everyone's models to find something that best worked for me. But I don't think any one person would stand out. I mean, obviously being coached by Sam, he's had a big influence on the way I train, and on how I go about my daily runs and the attitude towards them. So he's probably had a big influence, but I don't sort of look at one runner and say, this is the guy, or, you know, I guess you just pick and choose the bits that you like, and, you know, you hear people say stuff you don't like and you can just ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Now, so of the 7 runners who broke 24 hours, you were the only one who was running their first backyard ultra of them. So, I mean, I know you're running at Dead Cow Gully in June. Is there anything you'll change at Dead Cow Gully?
Won't change me shoes. I've actually had the luck of, I went and ran Dead Cow Gully training camp back in July.
Oh, yeah.
I did 8 hours. He did a midnight training run, Tim, and I went out there and we ran 8 hours and loved the track.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll change too much. I mean, I've learned a lot, but in terms of changing things, probably not. Probably not. Like, I don't want to fix what's not broken. And I think, again, I got about as far as I had in me. Yeah. So as far as, you know, the result versus my expectations, I exceeded what I thought I could do. And I'm going to leave things as is, and hope it's not 30-something degrees and I need to try to get 2 litres of water into me an hour. I'll probably practice running in the cold. It's going to be cold up there at night time. So probably get out for a few, you know, sunrise runs here when it's 1 or 2 degrees and really get used to that. But in terms of changing the way I executed at MVP, I'll leave things as close to what they are as I can.
Yeah. So you've spent the last 12 months gearing up for MVP, which is over now. Like, now it's over. Have you still got the drive to do backyard ultras? Like, are you even more motivated, or has running the MVP kind of like put a dampener on it a little bit?
No, I'm more motivated than ever. And more so, my wife's more motivated than ever to push me further. I think she was, you know, we both started running this year. And I think sometimes these long runs on a Saturday morning, you know, she'd probably prefer me home having breakfast and eating bacon and eggs together. And, you know, but now that I've sort of had such a good result at my first one, she's really keen on seeing how far I can go, and so am I. I think, you know, Dead Cow Gully, I don't want to think that just because I've had one good result that it's just going to be easy. You
Yeah.
know, this one was easy, so the next one's going to be easy. I don't think that's so much the case. But I obviously am going to expect more of myself. You know, the training, I'm back running now. We've sort of built a bit of a plan towards June. The volume's going to increase. I'm doing the Bright Ultra at the Buffalo Stampede.
Oh, cool.
At the end of March, another race down in Victoria.
Yeah. Yeah. What distance is that?
That's 100 kilometres with 5,000 metres ascending and descending. So that'll be a good workout for the quads.
Yeah.
But again, that's all just that'll be a training run for that next Backyard Ultra. I think Backyard Ultra is the format I like. Not knowing any other format, but I think it's I've become a bit obsessed with this idea of how far can you push yourself, and not in a negative way, but you know, in a positive way. Like, how long can you enjoy yourself out there for? And I'm so grateful that for 27 hours I had fun at MVP. Yeah. There wasn't a moment that I wasn't enjoying myself and grateful to be out there running, and I was having fun. And I think that's I want to see. Yeah, I mean, does it stop being fun at some point? And if I find that point, then that's probably maybe where I look, and maybe the spirit's dampened a little bit when when it starts to take the enjoyment out of it. But no, I'm as excited as ever to run at Dead Cow. I'm excited to run in whatever comes after that, and I've the sky's the limit. I've done what I've done in 12 months. What can I do in 24 months? What can I do in 36 months? And if I'm still having fun running and I'm still enjoying the training, and then I'll definitely keep doing these things.
Yeah, unreal. Now, I know you love, as you've said, you love the sport of Backyard Ultras, and I know you follow it. Like, you're always commenting on the live streams and stuff like that. So I know you follow the sport. Just as a follower of the sport, like, are there any races you're looking forward to watching, or any runners you're looking forward to sell? Any predictions for what you think might happen over the next 12 months as far as the record goes?
I mean, 110 hours is a long time to be running for anyone in any conditions. I'm obviously keen for Sydney's Backyard Ultra. They've got a few big names going there. Dead Cow Gully is going to be an absolute spectacle with what's going on there. I mean, I'd love to see Phil Gore be pushed to his limit. You look at him at the SAT Champs, and I mean, he just looks so fresh. And I mean, it's hard to tell how someone really feels, but he looked like a guy that had just woken up and started running. So, Dead Cow Gully, seeing how far Phil can go, and then obviously Biggs this year. So that will all be pretty interesting, but probably most looking forward to Dead Cow, and that's just being a part of it, getting to run with these guys, getting to run with Sam.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's obviously got some huge aspirations for 2025, and I mean, seeing the belief that he's had in me as one of his athletes. I mean, it feels weird saying that out loud, but that's what he calls me. But seeing his belief in me, I mean, I owe it to him to have that belief back in him, and I think that he's someone who's going to really challenge for this world record. And if there's a few people at Dead Cow Gully that are hungry to go that far, then I think it's a good chance of coming down. But I mean, there's so many factors, there's so many things that can influence an outcome, and 110 hours is an unfathomable amount of time to run. So
so you mentioned Sydney's. I mean, you're not I mean, you're in New South Wales. Are you planning on like driving down to watch some of the race or anything like that?
It's a long. I'm a lot further from Sydney than yeah. I'm as far north as you can get in New South Wales, so it'll be too far to go.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about maybe going down to the Cops Backyard Ultra.
Oh yeah.
They've got 500 and something people running,
Yeah.
so that's only a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours away.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks out from Dead Cow, so might go down and see what it's like watching that many people run around the course. And
yeah.
But no, I won't be down in Sydney. I mean, I looked, I definitely toyed with the idea of running there, but I just thought, look, I mean, you don't need to do them all.
Yeah.
And I think I'd rather put in some really solid training between now and Dead Cow and get the best result I can there, as opposed to trying to, put in stepping stones. And but I think Sydney will be a real blast, and they got some great runners there, so that's going to go for a pretty long time.
Yeah. Now you've mentioned Bright, you've mentioned Dead Cow Gully. What other races have you got earmarked in 2025?
That's it. That's it for now. I just got my Bright ticket this week.
Yeah.
Dead Cow, I got the day they came out.
Yeah.
As a fan of the sport, I just thought, to run with these guys would be unreal. Yeah. And now that I've had the result, I've had an MVP, I'm thinking, how long can I run with these guys? So that's it. I don't want to look too far ahead. I mean, it's a little bit like a backyard ultra. It's one loop at a time, one event at a time. And I mean, Bright is just we're just using that as a long training run for Dead Cow. That's not I'm not looking for a particular result there. I'm looking forward to maybe running a long way and getting to see some different scenery.
Yeah.
That I think will be pretty nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dead Cow, and then we'll wait and see.
Okay. So recently they've announced which races are the 5 silver ticket races in Australia to make the Australian team. Have you considered any of the 5 silver ticket races yet, or you're not looking that far ahead?
What are they, Pato? I mean, I know you mentioned GV last time.
GV is the Victorian one. Clint Eastwood is the Queensland one. Hurdy's is the one in WA, and Reds and Sydney's in 26 are the New South Wales ones.
Okay. Look, if I had to be honest and say that there's another goal moving forward, I think it would be to run on the Satellite Champs team in 2026. And I think that is so out of reach for someone who's only been running for 12 months. But I set a big goal 12 months ago and I achieved it. And I don't think there's any harm in setting big goals. If you set a big goal and you only make it halfway, you haven't failed. Yeah. You just might have aimed too far away. That being said, I don't know if I'll go chasing silver tickets. I think the best way to get onto one of these teams is to go and run the number somewhere where they're going to go long, somewhere there's going to be people who can push you that far. And I'm sure some of these silver ticket races are going to be the place to do it. There's going to be multiple people going for these, and and also, like, who knows what the number will be to make the team in 2026? Like, that could be 65 hours. So, but I don't think I'll go chasing silver ticket events. I think I'd rather, just go run places I want to run. And just, if I know there's people there that are going to be able to, push you as far as you can go, then that's what I'll enjoy.
Well, I mean, Dead Cow Gully is the perfect race for you to do that and go absolutely berserk. And because you've run there now. I mean, you know, as at the training run, I mean, it's totally different from MVP. There's not a single hill on the course.
Yeah. And I like to think if it was still flat at MVP, I'd probably still be running. You know, you could let gravity do the work at that point. Look, I don't think I'm going to run a number at Dead Cow Gully that's going to be anywhere near achieving a goal of say like running on the Australian team. But at that, I do have big hopes for myself there, and I do hope that I can again really push the envelope and see if, you know, build a bit more strength, focus on maybe a little bit more gym work and actual strength training in the legs, to be able to get past those obstacles that I had at MVP.
Yeah.
And yeah, see how far I can go. I mean, the idea of a day loop, night loop is exciting. The idea of a second night scares me.
Yeah.
So it'll be exciting, and it's all very unknown. So we'll see what happens in June.
Well, I mean, I'm a believer, man. I'm a believer. I reckon you can do a big number at Dead Cow Gully. I was really blown away by how good you were at MVP. I mean, we'd been messaging each other a little bit, and I knew you were going to be good, but to do that in your first one, that was an awesome performance.
Yeah, well, thanks, Pato. And I mean, thank you for, first of all, the resource that is the podcast. Like, the podcast makes it able to be a fan of the sport. I think without the podcast, it's probably a pretty hard sport to follow. Yeah. And then, you know, you giving me information that I asked for, sending me your race plan from last year, and you know, that you're probably a big part in what enabled me to do so well there. And I did exceed my own expectations. I didn't know what my expectations were, but I exceeded them. So I think I've got a lot further to go, and the real, you know, what does that timeline look like? How far and how long does it take to get there? But I mean, if I can keep injury free, which I'm super lucky to have increased from 0 kilometers to, you know, some 130 kilometer weeks without injuries, I think I'm really lucky. Yeah. And, you know, staying injury free will be a big part of whether or not I can, you know, reach my potential and stay on a trajectory. And I mean, having Sam as a coach and the way that he structures training and the way that, you know, we dedicate time to speed work, we dedicate time to strength work. You know, we're doing 3-hour long runs on a Saturday, finishing with park run, trying to run 5K PBs, you know, like it's the variation, I think, will keep me improving. And yeah, we'll see, you know, hopefully I don't hit a plateau in the next, you know, 18 or, you know, next 6 months even. Like you hear about runners, like you improve, and then you plateau. But I think having the coach and tackling all these different workouts, different runs, breaking up the week differently, it's just invaluable. So hopefully the trajectory stays the same, and I can, you know, keep working towards some big numbers.
Yeah. Now you have mentioned strength work and weights. Like, are you doing much like squats and stuff like that now?
It's all body work stuff. I'm married to my like one of those crab walk bands that you put around your legs and you crab walk side to side. Yeah. You know, I do that. Geez, 5-10 minutes a day in front of the TV, back and forward, put on a YouTube video, and like that's that's super important to me, is getting lots of glute activation. And it's probably the one thing that I'll look to increase moving forward, is doing a bit more heavy lifting. Everything's been body weight exercises, and all with the idea of avoiding injuries.
Yeah.
Whilst building strength, whereas I think the focus now will move towards building a bit of strength, whilst avoiding injuries, and strengthening the body, but a bit more on, all right, what sort of strength do we need if we're going to go and run, into a second night, and what sort of strength do we need if we're going to, be battling a small incline at 27 hours in a backyard ultra. So,
now MVP next year, are you going to come back?
I'd love to, but the travel makes it really hard. Sleeping in a motel was difficult. We stayed really close to the event. We were like 3 minutes away. Beautiful little motel, Keilor Motor Inn.
Yeah.
Sounded like the aeroplanes were landing on top of the roof. But it's pretty hard. I will do it if friends want to do it next year.
Yeah.
I'll go down and run it. But I mean, I would have probably loved nothing more than to be home in my bed the next day.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, my family are down in Victoria. The majority of my friends are down in Victoria. So it definitely is a good excuse to come down, see all them and do something silly at the same time.
Yeah.
And one thing I had down there, which was so good for recovery, which I don't have up here, was a friend of mine owns a float centre in Moonee Ponds, one of those like sensory deprivation tanks, which is like 500 kilos of Epsom salts. So I went and spent Sunday in one of those and fell asleep instantly. And it was just so nice to not have any pressure on any part of my body for 90 minutes, because I was in horrific pain. So that would probably be another draw card, would be knowing that I get to do that afterwards. But I don't know. The travel makes it hard. We flew down with our chairs.
Yeah.
And then bags packed with we didn't want to have to buy gels and things when we arrived, just in case we couldn't find, or, didn't want to run into any hurdles. So I couldn't say if I was going to do it, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. And did you say that you flew down with your chairs or without your chairs?
Flew down with the chairs. The chairs came down with us. They were in the oversized luggage.
Yeah.
And that was something that we couldn't, we called friends and said, does anyone have any camp chairs that are this specific chair that lies back? And no one did. So we could borrow most of the things we needed from friends, but flew down with our chairs. So I think we were the only people on the flight with camp chairs.
Yeah.
But that was definitely worth it.
Yeah, awesome. Now, Duncan, you probably know that at the end of the podcast, I like to ask my guests for their 3 backyard ultra tips. What are your 3 backyard ultra tips?
Oh, look, I do know that you asked this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I have enough experience to go and reinvent the wheel on tips, but I can definitely, reiterate some that I've heard. I mean, one would be don't fix it if it's not broken. I know, like Tim said to me, we problem solve, we troubleshoot, and we change all these things, trying to, make ourselves feel better. And eventually you just got to settle in. I mean, like, unless it's a real problem, I wouldn't change it. I wish I didn't change my shoes. I wouldn't change what I was eating because it was working. So if it isn't broken, don't fix it. If it's working, stick with it, because like you said, the slightest change can feel, unbelievably different after repeating the same action for so long.
Yeah.
So that would be number one from my experience at MVP. Number two would be to have a plan and rest the mind. I had a plan. I probably didn't have enough faith in it and enough faith in my crew executing it, and they did an incredible job. So I wish that I could have been more confident in how things were going to unfold and spent more time in the chair with my eyes closed, knowing that everything was happening that I needed to happen. So, yeah, having a plan, being confident in that plan, and then being able to relax on the day and not worry, because I think relaxing the mind is so important when you're going to be awake for so long.
Yeah.
And number three would have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy yourself. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of it, and I mean, I'm lucky to have enjoyed every minute of it, but it was so fun. I had a ball, just saying hi to people as you run past them, and, sharing a laugh, and, not getting caught up in the, how hard it is, what you're doing. And, like I sort of alluded to, you can be on a 60-minute easy run on a Tuesday afternoon, and it can stop being fun, but it's important to remember that you choose to do these things. No one's forcing you to do them. And in the end of the day, we do this because we enjoy it. So be present, be in the moment, remember that you're lucky to be there, and have fun doing it. It doesn't have to be a sufferfest. And you tell people like, oh, what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I ran, for 26 hours. And they go, oh, why would you do that? I said, oh, well, it was pretty fun, actually. Yeah. And they think, oh, what? And that attitude can definitely creep in while you're doing it. You can start to see it from people's perspective. It's, why am I doing this? But, there's a reason we do it. We enjoy doing it. So yeah, have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun, and don't make it, anything that it's not.
Yeah. Unreal. Well, thanks heaps for coming on, Duncan. I was so impressed with your performance. Like, I knew you'd be good, but you definitely blew me away a little bit with making the final 5 and breaking 24 and you looked the part. Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, Pato.
I'm a believer. I am a believer. I reckon you're going to kill it at Dead Cow Gully, man.
Thanks, mate. I'm excited. I'm excited to see, where this train's going.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep working, and I'm going to keep enjoying it.
Yeah.
I love getting out for my runs every day. I like all the side stuff that goes into it, the eating well, it's all a bit of a game, and it's all really fun. So yeah, hopefully we just keep going.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's had a pretty positive impact on your life, this running stuff.
100%. I mean, I'm fitter and healthier mentally and physically than I've ever been.
Yeah.
Watching the people around me see the transformation in 12 months, and the people around me who I work with and who I see daily who are running now, who are out running 3 days a week, and, who I get to go and run with now for 30 minutes on a Monday or a Tuesday, watching how it impacts other people, seeing you, make these big changes and start to look and feel better. And it's definitely the most positive change to my life that I've made. I drink less. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. Yeah. There's so many flow-on effects, and I don't know if running for 26 hours is good for you. but the process of getting there is great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Unreal. Well, awesome. Thanks again for coming on, Duncan.
Thanks for having me.
Stick around, but I'll hit stop on this record.